Peace. This is the Ask Your Oldhead podcast with Justice Rajee. I have my guest, Ralph Evans, with me. Peace, Ralph.
Peace. Glad to be here.
All right, we just get started. So can you share just somebody or someone that you want to give some love or some reverence to before we get into the interview?
Yeah, I mean, that's a big question. And I obviously go back and just give props to my family, to my wife and my son and my daughter, and all the siblings that are in my life. So yeah, those people are important, continue to be important, have been, continue to be important to me.
All right, awesome. Thank you. So,
and my granddaughter.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, two-year-old Parker Bailey Jackman, better known as PBJ.
That's sweet. I love that. So, first question: can you share just your value or principle, standard, something that you try to do to make a part of how you move through the world?
Yeah. To me, the important statement that I live by is make your intentions your achievements. And I coined that phrase about 8-9 years ago when I got into my consulting business, which was executive coaching. And I was going through a 1-year program at a university in California. And I'm sitting there and I'm saying to myself, how many times have I heard someone say, if I could have, or what I really want to do is, and all it was just a statement. There was never any follow-up. There was never any action to realize that wish or that dream. So I said, well, why don't we just make our intentions our achievements? If you live by that, not only will you have that dream, but hopefully you'll find a way to make it come together. So that drives me. And I didn't realize how much it drove me until I said the words. But that's the point. That's the message that I live by. Make your intentions your achievements.
So could you, for the listeners, because I like to reflect back whenever I talk, can you give an idea so people have clarity, like what an intention is, like, or in your view, what an intention is? Could you share?
Sure. Well, let's go. I mean, there's so many different areas that it can apply. Let's just look at education. The person that's out there now that might be listening who is a junior or a senior in high school, or in their third or fourth year of college, and their intention at either one of those points is to not only get an education, but to make that education do some things for them that heretofore they have not been able to do. Okay. The education is there. I mean, you let's say you get that. You get your diploma, you get your degree, you have it. And that dream, hopefully, that you had that drove you to that point is still alive and still active. The next thing is to make it work. Make it do what you hoped it would do. And that doesn't happen on its own. That doesn't happen with someone coming over you and just sprinkling a little dust and say, okay, you got it now, everything's going to be great. You have to take the steps to realize and bring to fruition all of that work that you've done. So, when you're going through high school or college, and I'll use college as the point of the conversation here, you have some sense of where you want to go career-wise, what profession you want to go into. And you just have to start working towards making that happen. In my career, as you know, my whole career was in human resources. I was involved in human resources for 39 plus years, and I loved it. I loved every bit of it. But when after about 3 years into that profession, I realized that my goal was to be a vice president of human resources somewhere. And everything I did was targeted to become that.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Now I didn't blurt that out, and I didn't make that a point to everybody that I came in contact with. But when I looked at the landscape of things that you can do in that profession, and the expertise that you need to have to get to that point that I wanted to get to, then I said, okay, this is where I need to do. So my intention was to do that, and the achievement was reached. Mm-hmm. And it was reached at a pace that I was pleased with. And along the way, not only the learning of, the ins and outs of working in that profession, but also the relationships that you form as you go through that help to inform you as to what you need to do differently, mm-hmm. what you need to do, what you need to continue to do in order to achieve your goal. So, that statement is really a goal-oriented statement. It's the aspirational piece of it, because it's not as specific as goal setting, but it is aspirational in the sense that you want to achieve. And what drives that achievement is your intention to do something that gets you there. So, yeah.
I want to reflect back something else I heard in there, because I think we can sometimes, I think, in life be not being completely honest with ourselves about sort of like the difference between an intention and an achievement. Like, we may be thinking like, I want to earn a certain amount of money, and we may cloak that in like, oh, I just want to be in service, and this other things over here, which if you really try to make a lot of money, not saying that I want you to do it in a disreputable way,
right,
but it just means what you're talking about over here is you're not really telling the truth. Like, because that gets reflected on something here where like there's certain roles and jobs that if you're in community service, you probably not going to make a whole lot of money unless you're doing something. You're doing it to kind of maybe position yourself for something that would be I would say a little disreputable. Wouldn't be a cool person to be, and or maybe transposing that with being in a I'm going to go into a corporate space and I want to, I'm trying to move up the ladder.
Right.
But not being honest, like, no, my intention is to be operating on that vice president level or that, director level.
Right.
But in your conversation, you're like, oh, I'm just trying to be a humble da-da-da, and I'm just trying to do a good job. And it's like, I don't know if that's true. You know what I mean? Can you share, or have you ever experienced, especially in your HR experience, where someone, maybe is operating that way? Like, what is some of the kind of the mayhem that can kind of create?
So let me see if I can kind of put that in my words, is where they're saying one thing, but in reality they're acting in a different way.
Yeah, like so their real interest is, let's say for the sake of this conversation, is earning a lot of money.
Yeah. Gotcha.
But over here, they're talking about community building and team energy and all this other stuff that is good stuff if you really mean it.
Right.
But really, they're like, I want to have a lot of power and money.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
well, yeah. I mean, it's the dilemma I think that you face with that is power and money are out of your control. I think, to an extent. Another philosophy that I'd lived by, but was brought there by my first boss, who, when I went to him after a couple of months of working, And I said, I think I need a raise. And he said, young man, come here. Sit down. Shut the door. Sit down. I went in. And what he impressed upon me was the value of doing the work. And he said, if you do the work, the money will be there. Now, as a how old was I then? 24-year-old. I kind of like, and this was a white dude that was telling me this. I said to myself, okay. This is in 1971, so you can imagine, what was going on in the world around that time. But he said it in a way, and he demonstrated other things in a way that led me to believe that, okay, I'm going to see what that means. So rather than focus on the money, which is important, I ain't gonna fool you now. Yeah, I gotta. But instead of focusing on that, I focused on doing the work. Because I could control the work. I can control doing the work. I could control, how much I would do, how much I wouldn't do, how much I would try to get by on, how much I would take, make a real intense effort of completing. But I realized that the money and the positional power was really out of my control. And it brought me to another realization that, let me deal with what's in my control. Because trying to satisfy everybody else can run you down a path that can be pretty destructive. So, yeah, it's when I say intentions, it's and that's why I say it's aspirational. Aspirational in the sense of in my own head and feeling of self-worth and so forth. Where do I want to be? And never lose it. Never lose it. It applies to golf. My intention is to be not a scratch golfer. I'm not going to be that crazy, but to be a low handicapper. I'm kind of mid handicapper now. So what do I have to do to get there? Well, I got to play. I got to practice. I got to do a lot of things. Because there is a scoring mechanism. There's a way you can keep score.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing that I think is really important is to identify those things where those intentions and potential achievements where you can keep score. Because your inability to keep score just has you going from pillar to post. And you can score yourself. Others can, if they choose to, can get a sense of how you're progressing or not. But and the other thing that statement assumes, and when I thought about it, I said, well, what about the person whose intentions are not the most noble? Do I want those to become achievements? Well, not necessarily. No, I don't. But to try to parse that and try to, I got to think about. I think that people generally, given the chance to do right, most people will. That's a philosophical underpinning of mine. Is given the chance to do right, most people will do the right thing. So, let me just hang on to that and let this other intentions achievement statement be sort of embedded in that philosophy, because trying to identify the person who's out for no good, I can't do that.
Yeah. You never. I think maybe the other side of that coin is that there's people who in most circumstances have been very, very good, and then they can have that moment when something appears and like, I could take this. No one's going to notice me taking this off the table, you know. And everything else, they've been like pretty square and up, and then they, you know, they put the hand in the cookie jar the one day, and you know, and then it is what it is, and it's not a. So that opportunity and then that space is for one to make a choice that's different. You know, is there.
And I would say, Justice, all of us have found ourselves in that situation that you just described, in some degree or another, one degree or another. We found ourselves in that situation, and the fact that you take that step and make that move to do something that's not consistent with your values and can even be viewed as being, you know, illegal, immoral. The fact that you've done that, I don't think should place a person, you know, should just cause them to be jettisoned to the side. But I think what has to happen is that person, hopefully that person has enough moral compass in them that the reflection of that action and the reward of that action, they sort of kind of think about what I did, why I did it, what I got, what's in front of me. Because we're all growing. I mean, we're all growing. We're all learning. It's the person who does that time and time again that is really the problem. But I think part of growth is making mistakes. And learning from those mistakes.
So relationships, broadly defined, what's something that you understand now or practice now about relationships that at other points in your life maybe you did differently or saw differently?
Let's see. Well, when you say the word relationship, the first word that jumps in my head is respect. I've always had a high level of respect for individuals, always. And when I think about my own, you know, personal relationships, being, you know, with family, immediate family, and my wife and my kids and my brothers and sisters and parents, there was a moment, and I'm smiling because my mother, I think I was maybe 16 years old, and this is where the difference, do something differently, comes in. There was a young lady who really liked me, but I didn't really like her. I mean, I just didn't like her. And one day she came to the house with a present for me. It was a bottle of cologne, and knocked on the door and gave me the gift, and I took the gift. And apparently I wasn't as thankful or respectful as my mother thought I should have been. And when the girl left, my mom sat me down. I'll never forget this. She said, I know you know, you don't, looks like you don't like her. I said, but she said, but she took the time to go out and buy that for you. She took the time to bring it to you. And don't ever let me see you not respect that kind of action again. Now, and it was that kind of a conversation. It wasn't, she wasn't yelling at me or anything, and I wasn't overly disrespectful. I just didn't give the girl the respect that my mom thought a 15, 16-year-old teenage boy should do.
Yeah.
And that taught me something. That taught me, even though you may not, have a real affection towards another person, the fact that they take the time and the energy to show you their respect, then that's what you need to do. to this day, the one thing that, and I think people who know me well will attest to this, that the one thing that turns me off immediately is a demonstration of disrespect by anyone to anyone. I just have no tolerance for it. So, respect is the one that I think is important in relationships.
That's heavy. So this is a reflection back on that. Are there any particular vehicles of like how to show respect that you would want to make, like kind of maybe highlight or just like pull out, like say like this is a something that I would see like as an artifact of like showing respect for someone, or this is
Yeah. I mean, first of all, I think it's active listening. I mean, that's a term but listening to someone and engaging with that person as they talk, as they communicate with you. And some people don't communicate as easily as others. Some want to, they just don't know how to. And I think as what you got to do is kind of not make it about. If you make it about you, then you can't really get a sense of the other person's needs. So I try not to think about what am I going to say next. I try to think about what are they trying to tell me? What are they trying to communicate? And if they're having some difficulty, try to find a way to make that a little less of a challenge for them to communicate with me, and hopefully, that'll be they'll be able to take whatever that experience was and using it in another encounter. Mm-hmm. Artifact is really just kind of just having a sense of the other person's energy, lack thereof, comfort level, lack thereof. It's kind of that like that.
Yeah, I feel you. All right. Circle back to that after this one. So what's something that's just or what is or something that is really important to you right now?
What's important to me right now is my granddaughter. And we waited a long time to have a grandchild. I'll be 72 next month, and so she's just 2 years old, and our only grandchild. Mm-hmm. And what I want to do is to spend as much time with her as I can, which is not easy because she lives in Maryland and we live here. Mm-hmm. But because my daughter comes here every maybe 3 to 4 months, so we get to see her more frequently maybe than otherwise. But trying to convey to her the wisdom that I have and that my wife and I have, so that as she grows up, she's got that. I'm not looking for anything other than the opportunity to share all of what I've gone through, by challenging her, by rewarding her, by embracing her, by doing all those things that I know is important to a developing and growing child. That's very important to me right now. The other important thing is just living a very simplified life. If you look at my LinkedIn page, it says simplified life, and that's all I'm trying to do. I spent many years dealing with that corporate culture and feel as though I did fairly well, but that takes something out of you. Mm-hmm. It really does. You never, the thing is, you can't lose your sense of self, and I think that's the thing that that allowed me to make it through all those years by not do some crazy stuff or make some stupid decisions, but trying to simplify things, mm-hmm. And let the next 25, 30 years, 30 would be great, but those years be as stress-free as possible, mm-hmm. as challenging as possible, because I can't just sit around, mm-hmm. but just simplify things. Yeah.
Oh, let me ask you this: is there anything now being in the role? Because I as a parent and the parent of a soon-to-be senior in high school, it then takes me back to like me being on the other side of the line, like with my mom and mm-hmm. What was happening. And so I imagine being in the grandparent space now. Is there anything that has popped up for you that maybe took you, not just back to moms, or popped like back to grandparents that maybe you're like, I'm reflecting, or I'm doing something that I remember, in this way, or has anything popped up for you so far in that experience?
Not as a grandparent. I think Parker's a little too young for us to have that kind of two-way communication just yet. But as a parent, because our son's 48, our daughter's 45, 44. As a parent, as they were growing up, did I see did I do some things that I reflect back on and say that's what my parents did? I think with my son, he and I, when he was a teenager, my dad was an outdoors guy. He was a hunter and fisher, but did more hunting than anything else. And that was one of the things that Ralph and I did as a father-son when he was 12, 13 years old. He learned how to respect firearms and hunting, as I learned from my father. But he learned that with me, mm-hmm. And to this day he still does that. Yeah. I think with my daughter, and both of them, I always challenged them. I never allowed no to be an acceptable answer. Mm-hmm. But I always just kind of challenged them, academically, socially, just to make sure that they were thinking through the things, and that was more of my mother's position and point of view as my older brothers and sisters. I basically had older brothers and sisters who could be parents, but mm-hmm. But yeah, I reflect back on that sometimes. Mm-hmm. With them.
I think I find myself as a parent, seeing behaviors that are, they may be slightly updated or whatever, or adjusted to my times, but there's certain things that are common to what I was raised with, and sometimes that's fussing with people, and sometimes that's also, I was at least I felt as though I was given a lot of freedom, mm-hmm. to like kind of figure certain things out for myself as a kid, or to be, however I was. So I cognitively with my kids, like I want to try to give them freedom, but then sometimes I'm like, but I don't want them to be. Don't be too free over there. Don't get too free with it. I mean, like, be free, but
right.
It's a very interesting kind of feeling and space to be in. You know what I mean? I think.
I think. Being the seventh of 9 children, and the youngest boy, so I had a lot of guidepost in my life that brothers and sisters, aunts and uncles, and so forth. But parents weren't strict, but they mattered. They took interest in what I was doing, but they weren't really strict in the sense of you can't go here, you can't go there. They kind of left that up to me to figure out, and apparently they knew they were providing the foundation where that decision making would be made in the right way, and they did. 9 children, and all of us done well. So yeah,
very good, very good. So I'm gonna pivot.
Yep.
That's in another direction. I know that you are a music person. You enjoy music and you take
love it.
And I think there's the wind instrument of some sort.
Flute.
All
yes,
right.
yes.
So I didn't prep you for this question, but it was on my mind. So in terms of flute players or performers, is there anyone or any ones, multiple, if there's a case, that you either like aspire to play? I don't know. Maybe I aspire to play but at least you look to them sort of like motivation or energy around, like, or you would say like, if you really like the flute, you should listen.
Yeah.
To this. Where give me where would we start at if that was what you would?
Well, the pure flautists out there are Herbie Mann and Hubert Laws. Those were two musicians that I can recall listening to as I was growing up, and listen to them today. I was just listening to Hubert Laws the other day, and saying, I think the song was All Soul. I said, I can let me pick up and see if I can at least finger it.
Can I get there?
Can I get there?
Can I get in there?
I don't have that dexterity yet, but those were two that come to mind. Dorothy Ashby, I think, was another one who comes to mind. And there's Najee. Najee, plays the soprano, but he also plays the flute. But the flute was the first instrument that I learned when I was 13, and I didn't stay with it long. I only stayed with it for a year, and then I moved on to baritone sax, alto sax, and then tenor sax. And it wasn't until maybe 10, 12 years ago that I said, a flute is a lot easier to carry around than those instruments. So,
well, there's definitely something to be said for the execution of the plan. If the instrument isn't as cumbersome and challenging, that it might make it raise the odds.
I was traveling a lot, for work, and I said, I can buy this and put it under my arm, and if I want to do something with it, I can. So that's and that was fits and starts and trying to get back into it. But lately, I've been spending a lot of time. It's kind of golf and music. Those are the two things that sort of as a side kind of keep me busy. Yeah, keep me occupied. I don't say busy, but keep me occupied.
Yeah, well, I still, as I like to say, I aspire to play my bass guitar more. I'm working on it. Some weeks I get sometimes I get more than 2 practices, and then sometimes I don't get to practice for a couple months. And but it's still fun, when I do get to sit down and you get that, like when you're practicing an instrument, you get that moment where you're like, okay, I'm really focused. You know what I mean? It's a really good feeling. I guess I think they call it the flow or whatever. And then you start kind of, and you feel like you make some progress. It's a beautiful feeling.
Well, one of and this again goes back to my opening statement: make your intentions your achievements. But this year, I'm going to do something that is really kind of interesting, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to go to a jazz camp at the University of Louisville in July. It's a one week camp, and as a friend, I've got a good friend who plays alto sax, kind of on the side. He's retired and he's been to this particular jazz camp, and he suggested that I go. He says, "And if you go, I'll sign up and I'll go with you."
Okay.
So that's going to happen in July, and I'm just going for the experience, man. Yeah. They don't require any level of expertise. I know music. I can read music. Fingering, because of the fingers aren't as dexterous as they used to be. Mm-hmm. But that's something that I'm really excited about.
That sounds like a good time. I should go to a camp. I don't know. We'll see. I got to do all type of stuff right
there
now.
You go.
I got a lot of stuff I got to do. I got to take kids to places. But I understand. I think it would be, I would say, I think just to reflect to a piece of that, and something I think you shared with me before, just talking about maintaining relationships with like some of your friends and people that you've come up with. Because last month was in. Last month being March, this probably when this will be released, it won't be April. But I was in Chicago for my birthday with some of my friends, and every year that as we get older, making sure we make time to like be in the same place at the same time with each other. Like every one of them gets like a little bit more precious to me. Yep. But also, part of that was my intention of making sure we are thinking about like how our interests and our where we're going, they can diverge, and so we have to like make sure we do something together. Right. So like I think it's a real dope testament to like go do the jazz with a friend, and y'all y'all gonna share that moment. That's good stuff. I don't know. I got another friend that does. You make more music. I'm sure he would like us all to make more music, but I don't know. I would like to play my bass more, but I don't know how committed I am to the rest of the music playing.
And and the time, and that's the beauty of doing it on your terms. The time will come when it all falls into place. Mm-hmm. And like even now, there'll be days where I won't do anything, and why? Because I just don't have that spark to do it. Mm-hmm. And all it takes is maybe one thing. My wife might say, haven't heard you practice lately. And that'll say, man, I got to do this. But then, that's the thing that makes it happen again. So, but yeah. But no, music is very, very important in my life. Listening, and playing it, all of that.
Awesome. Well, we're getting close to the time. I don't want to hold you forever. So you brought up Uber Laws, and I'm a Uber Laws fan. I got some. I don't remember all the records by name, but I remember somebody what's on the cover because I got some in vinyl and I got some other place. Could you give me maybe 3 Uber Laws? Either it could be the individual song or it could be a record. Let's go with the individual song that maybe you would suggest.
Well,
to check out.
Yeah,
if you can.
The only one I can think of is like I said, All Soul.
All Soul.
All Soul. And other ones I can't. My brain don't work that way.
I should have gave you a cheat sheet so you knew this was coming.
Now, I can pull out my phone and
dig them up.
Yeah, but no, I can remember the tune and and but sometimes I can't remember the song, the name. So,
all right. Well, Ralph, I want to thank you, for coming on and sharing with us. And, since you've been here today,
yep,
I'd love to have you on again in the future. Maybe we want to
love
delve
to.
into another topic, or maybe have you on with another person we can, process an issue or something of that nature, or something where I know your expertise would be poignant. And I appreciate you, though.
Well, appreciate it. The time to talk and share, and wish you the best, my brother.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Anything for the good of the order before I let you go?
No. I, Tigers tied for first.
Yeah. Hey, I was about to say, I was checking. I was going to ask you. Got that? I thank you for bringing that back up, because I saw that he was in the.
I think he's tied for first.
In the bit, he was,
Yeah, he's playing well. He's his putting let him down a little bit yesterday, and a few times today, but I think he shot a 67.
Yeah, wow.
So he's either 11 under, I believe.
Yeah, like it says here that right now, I guess, I don't know if it's the end of the day now, but 2 shots off the lead. So
yeah, and maybe there may have been some guys coming in
later.
Yeah, but
that means tomorrow,
yeah,
putting them under pressure,
right? Yeah,
that's his thing. So I'd like to see him crack
Right.
through. That would be nice.
Yep.
Well,
all right, brother.
I appreciate you, Ralph. Thank you.
Thank you, man.
And this has been the Ask Your Old Head podcast with Justice Rajee. Peace.